At 65 years old, I finally learned something no man ever wants to admit. You can give someone your youth, your strength, your entire life. And still, they may one day ask for proof that you ever mattered. My name is James Carter. I'm 65 years old. And the day my daughter asked me for her adoption papers, not forgiveness, was the day I realized love alone doesn't always make you family. Before I go any further, let me say this. If you believe family is built by sacrifice, not blood, please subscribe to this channel. And tell me in the comments where you're watching from. And whether you've ever felt unwanted by the very people you lived for. That morning started like any other. I was sitting at the kitchen table, nursing my second cup of coffee, staring out the window like old men do, thinking about nothing and everything at the same time. When she walked in, I knew something was different. No "Good morning, Dad." No smile. No warmth. She sat across from me slowly, carefully, like she was preparing for a business meeting, not a conversation with her father. She placed a folded paper on the table between us. "Dad," she said. The words sounded heavy, uncomfortable. "I need something from you." I waited. "I need my adoption records." For a moment, I honestly thought I misheard her. "Your what?" I asked. "My adoption papers," she repeated. "I need the legal documents. As soon as possible." No apology. No explanation. Just a request. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't argue. I just stared at the paper. Because when someone asks for forgiveness, there's still hope. But when they ask for documents, they're trying to erase a history. I looked at her face. The same face I once wiped tears from. The same eyes that used to search for me in crowded rooms. And suddenly, I felt like a stranger in my own house. I met her mother, Helen, almost 40 years ago. She was a single mother with tired eyes and a 3-year-old daughter who barely spoke. That little girl didn't trust men. Didn't trust promises. Didn't trust anyone who smiled too easily. Her biological father had disappeared before she turned 2. No goodbye. No letters. No child support. Just absence. I didn't try to impress her daughter. I didn't try to replace anyone. I just showed up. Every day. Morning routines. School drop-offs. Doctor visits. Late-night fevers. One night, while Helen was washing dishes, that little girl climbed into my lap and fell asleep. That's when it hit me. I wasn't dating a woman with a child. I was choosing a family. When Helen asked me if I would adopt her daughter, I didn't hesitate. I remember the courthouse. The wooden benches. The judge's calm voice. My hands were shaking when I signed the papers. Not from fear. From responsibility. When it was over, the judge smiled and said, "Congratulations, Mr. Carter. You're officially a father." The little girl looked up at me and asked, "Does that mean you won't leave?" I swallowed hard and said, "It means I never will." I kept that promise. I taught her how to ride a bike. Held the seat, ran behind her, fell, laughed, got back up. I sat through school plays where she forgot her lines and still clapped the loudest. I worked overtime. Missed vacations. Wore the same coat for years. Not because I had to, but because she deserved better. I never once reminded her she was adopted. Because love doesn't keep score. Helen and I were married for 34 years. When cancer took her, it didn't just take my wife. It took the glue holding our family together. After the funeral, things changed. Slowly. Phone calls became shorter. Visits became rare. Holidays felt tense, like everyone was pretending everything was fine. Then came the comments. "You didn't really have to do all that, Dad. You chose this life. You're not my real father anyway." Each sentence was calm. Almost casual. That hurt more than anger ever could. I told myself she was grieving. That pain makes people cruel. But grief doesn't erase gratitude. It reveals character. Years passed. She stopped visiting altogether. When I asked why, she said she needed space. Then one afternoon, she showed up unannounced. No hug. No smile. Just that folded paper. "I need the records," she said again. "For legal reasons." That's when I understood. This wasn't about identity. It was about money. Because 6 months earlier, I had rewritten my will. And she didn't know what was in it. What she also didn't know was that her biological father wasn't as absent as she believed. And once those adoption papers came out, nothing would ever be the same. The truth is, I didn't rewrite my will out of anger. I rewrote it out of clarity. After Helen died, the house felt too quiet. Not peaceful. Empty. I spent nights sitting in the dark, replaying conversations I wished I'd had differently. Moments I ignored because I believed love was enough to carry us through anything. That's when I started noticing patterns. Phone calls that only came when bills were due. Visits timed around holidays. Never random, never just because she missed me. Questions disguised as concern. "Are you doing okay financially, Dad? Did Mom leave anything complicated behind? You ever think about downsizing?" At first, I didn't connect the dots. I didn't want to. Because once you accept that your child may be measuring your worth in dollars, you can't unsee it. The night I decided to change my will, I wasn't angry. I was calm. Too calm. I had just come back from the doctor. Routine checkup. Nothing serious, but enough to remind me that time doesn't negotiate. That evening, I opened the old metal file cabinet in the garage. The one Helen insisted we keep. Just in case. Inside were deeds, insurance papers, savings bonds. And my original will. Everything went to her. Everything. No conditions. No explanations. I closed the folder and sat there for a long time. Then I realized something uncomfortable. If Helen were alive, she would have seen what I was finally seeing. That love without boundaries doesn't always protect you. Sometimes, it teaches people how to take without guilt. So I called my attorney. Not to punish anyone. Not to get revenge. Just to be honest. I told him I wanted my estate divided carefully. Thoughtfully. I wanted accountability. I wanted gratitude to matter. And most importantly, I wanted truth written into something permanent. That's why her sudden interest in adoption papers didn't surprise me. It confirmed my fear. When she asked for them, I didn't refuse. I told her I'd look for them. But that night I didn't sleep. I sat in the living room, surrounded by memories. Photos on the walls, trophies in dusty boxes, school certificates with my last name printed in bold. I kept asking myself the same question. When did I stop being her father? And start becoming a technicality? The next day, she called. Her tone was different. Softer. Careful. "Dad," she said, "I didn't mean to upset you yesterday." That alone told me everything. People only soften their tone when they want something. "I know this might be hard for you," she continued. "But I need those documents soon. There are timelines." Timelines. Legal word. I asked her directly. "Is this about the will?" There was a pause. Too long. "I just want to understand my rights," she said finally. Rights. Not relationship. Not love. Rights. That word echoed in my head long after the call ended. I agreed to meet her later that week. Public place. Coffee shop. Neutral ground. When I arrived, she was already there, scrolling on her phone, barely looking up when I walked in. No hug. No warmth. Just business. She started talking before I even sat down. "I've been doing some research," she said. "Adoption laws can be complicated. Sometimes they affect inheritance differently." I watched her mouth move, but all I could hear was the unspoken sentence behind her words. I'm trying to protect what I think I deserve. I asked her something that had been burning inside me for years. Did I ever make you feel unwanted? She froze. Just for a second. Then she smiled politely. No, Dad. Of course not. That smile hurt more than a slap. Because it wasn't honest. I told her I'd need time to locate the papers. Which wasn't a lie. They were locked away in a safety deposit box. She nodded, satisfied. As we stood to leave, she hesitated. There's something else, she said. I've been in touch with my biological father's side of the family. That sentence felt like a quiet explosion. I didn't react. I just listened. They reached out to me, she continued. They want to connect. I nodded slowly. And that's when it finally made sense. This wasn't just about money. This was about replacement. She was building an exit. A new story where I was optional. That night, I went to the bank. I opened the safety deposit box. Inside were the adoption papers. And a letter Helen had written years ago. A letter she asked me to keep sealed unless absolutely necessary. I had never opened it. Until that night. And what was written inside changed everything I thought I knew about her past. Because her biological father hadn't disappeared. He had been paid to stay away. And Helen had made that choice to protect her daughter. A truth that would shatter the version of reality my daughter was chasing. I closed the box slowly. For the first time, I understood something clearly. The papers she wanted weren't going to give her freedom. They were going to give her pain. And once she read them, there would be no going back. I didn't open Helen's letter right away. I sat in my car outside the bank for nearly an hour, the envelope resting on the passenger seat like it had weight. Not physical weight, emotional. Some truths don't rush you. They wait. When I finally broke the seal, my hands were steady. Helen always said the hardest things calmly. The letter started with my name. James. If you're reading this, it means our daughter is searching for something I hoped she'd never need. That sentence alone made my chest tighten. Helen explained everything. Her biological father hadn't vanished by accident. He hadn't been careless. He hadn't simply walked away. He had been angry, unstable, possessive. When Laura was still a baby, he had threatened to take her away. Not to raise her, but to hurt Helen. Helen had gone to court, filed reports, asked for protection, and then she made a choice that haunted her for the rest of her life. She paid him to leave. One final payment. In exchange for disappearing forever. No contact. No future claims. She wrote that she never told me because she feared I'd see her differently. She ended the letter with words I'll never forget. Blood doesn't make a parent. Protection does. I folded the letter carefully. I didn't feel angry at Helen. I felt proud. She had done what parents do. She chose safety over pride. The next morning, my daughter called again. Her voice was impatient now. Did you find the papers? She asked. Yes, I said. There was relief on the other end of the line. I want to come by, she said. I think it's best if we go through them together. Together. That word sounded almost intimate. I agreed. When she arrived, she didn't look around the house anymore. No nostalgia. No memories. Just straight to business. I placed the envelope on the table between us. Before she could reach for it, I said, "There's something you need to know first." She frowned slightly. What? There's a letter, I said. From your mother. That caught her off guard. She hesitated. Then nodded. I slid the letter across. She read silently. At first, her face was blank. Then confused. Then tense. Her jaw tightened as she reached the part about her biological father. When she finished, she didn't look at me. She stared at the table. So she paid him off, she said flatly. To protect you, I replied. She let out a short laugh. Or to control the story. That hurt. You think your mother manipulated you? I asked. I think she decided for me, she snapped. Just like you did. I took a breath. Adoption wasn't something I did to you, I said calmly. It was something I did for you. She finally looked up. Then why does it feel like I don't belong anywhere? She asked. That question stopped me. Because for the first time, I heard fear, not greed. I told her the truth. You belong where you were loved, I said. Not where someone shares your DNA. She stood up suddenly. You don't get to decide that anymore, she said. I'm meeting him. Those words landed like thunder. When? I asked. Soon, she replied. They'd been reaching out for months. Months. While she smiled at me. While she asked about my health. While she pretended nothing had changed. Why didn't you tell me? I asked quietly. Because I knew you'd react like this, she said. Like you're losing something. I didn't argue. Because maybe I was. She took the adoption papers and slipped them into her bag. At the door, she paused. This doesn't change what you did for me, she said. But it does change who I am. Then she left. That night I didn't sleep. I kept wondering if this was the moment parents are warned about. The moment your child walks toward a fire. And all you can do is watch. Days passed. Then weeks. She stopped calling. I heard about her meeting through someone else. A distant cousin? A vague message. She was excited. Hopeful. I waited. Because experience has taught me something painful. People chasing blood often discover it doesn't circulate kindness. Then one afternoon my attorney called. His tone was serious. James, he said, there's been an inquiry regarding your estate. My stomach tightened. From who? He paused. Your daughter's biological father. That was the moment everything shifted. Because it wasn't just emotional anymore. It was legal. And the man Helen paid to stay away had decided it was time to come back. Not for his daughter, but for what he thought she was owed. And suddenly, the will I rewrote wasn't just about money. It was about protection. Again. I had always believed that if danger ever came back into my daughter's life, I would be the one standing between it and her. What I never imagined was that danger would walk in wearing a smile and calling itself family. My attorney explained everything calmly, like lawyers do when they're trying not to scare you. The biological father hadn't filed a claim yet, but he had requested information. Enough to test the waters. Enough to see what doors might open. I thanked my attorney and hung up, then sat there staring at the wall. Helen had paid that man to disappear to protect our daughter. And now, decades later, he was back because he smelled opportunity. I called my daughter that night. She didn't answer. I texted. No reply. That silence told me more than words ever could. A week later, she finally called. Her voice was excited. Hopeful. Dad, she said, I met him. My heart sank. How was it? I asked carefully. He's different than I imagined, she said. He says he never stopped thinking about me. I closed my eyes. Men like him always say that. He explained why he wasn't around. She continued. He said he was pushed out. That he didn't have a choice. I said nothing. Because arguing with hope only makes it cling tighter. She talked for 20 minutes. About resemblance. About shared traits. About how everything suddenly made sense to her. When she finally paused, I asked one question. Did he ask about money? Silence. That was my answer. He just wants to understand what he missed, she said defensively. You're being unfair. No, I replied quietly. I'm being experienced. She snapped back. You don't want me to have him in my life because you're afraid of losing your place. That one hurt. Because it wasn't entirely wrong. But not for the reason she thought. "I'm not afraid of losing my place," I said. "I'm afraid of you getting hurt." She laughed softly. "I'm not a child anymore." I almost said, "You're still my child." But I didn't. Because I could already feel her slipping away. 2 weeks later, the letter arrived. Certified mail. From a law firm. Representing her biological father. My hands were steady when I opened it. The language was polite, professional, and threatening in the way only legal words can be. They were requesting recognition, information, and a conversation about potential claims. I called my attorney immediately. We met the next morning. He was blunt. "He's testing leverage," he said. "He's using your daughter as the bridge." That night, I asked my daughter to meet me. She hesitated, then agreed. We met at the same coffee shop as before. Neutral ground. She arrived late. I placed the letter on the table. She read it slowly. Her expression shifted. Confusion. Then worry. "He said he wouldn't do this," she whispered. "I didn't say I warned you. I just watched." "He said he just wanted a relationship," she said. "He promised." I leaned forward. "People who want relationships don't start with lawyers," I said calmly. She rubbed her temples. "He says you manipulated Mom into cutting him out," she said. "He says you took his place." That sentence finally broke my silence. "I didn't take anything," I said firmly. "I filled a void he left behind." She looked torn. "I don't know who to believe anymore," she said. For the first time in months. She looked small again. I told her everything. About the threats. About the fear. About the protection. I didn't exaggerate. I didn't soften it. When I finished, she sat quietly. Then she asked something I never expected. "If he's lying," she said slowly, "why does he know things about me?" I took a breath. "Because blood carries information," I said. "But love carries responsibility." She didn't respond. Days later, she called me crying. He had asked her to sign something. "Just paperwork," he said. "Nothing serious." She refused. That's when his tone changed. That's when the warmth disappeared. That's when she saw him clearly. He accused her of being ungrateful. Of choosing money over truth. Of being influenced by me. That night, she came to my house. She didn't knock. She just walked in. And collapsed into my arms like she had when she was little. "I'm scared," she whispered. I held her. Not because I had won. But because she had lost an illusion. She stayed the night. In the morning, she apologized. Not loudly. Not dramatically. Just honestly. "I didn't realize how much you protected me," she said. "I didn't say I told you so," I said. "That's what parents do." But the situation wasn't over. Because the biological father wasn't done. He filed a claim. Not for custody. Not for love. For money. And now, we were headed somewhere either of us wanted. Court. And the truth was about to be spoken out loud. In front of strangers. I never imagined the last chapter of my life would be decided in a courtroom. Cold benches. Fluorescent lights. Strangers judging a family story they never lived. My daughter sat beside me, quiet. Not distant anymore. Just tired. Across the room sat the man who shared her blood. Older now. Thinner. But with the same restless eyes Helen had once described in her letter. He didn't look at me with anger. He looked at me with calculation. That told me everything. When the judge entered, the room stood. And just like that, decades of sacrifice, fear, and love were reduced to legal language. His attorney spoke first. He talked about missed opportunities. About a father denied his rights. About financial responsibility and moral obligation. Every sentence was carefully polished. Not once did he mention diapers. Nightmares. School meetings. Doctor visits. Because you can't invoice love retroactively. When it was my turn, my attorney stood calmly. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't dramatize. He simply told the truth. He explained the adoption, the court order, the legal finality. Then he introduced Helen's letter. The judge read silently. The room felt heavy. When my daughter was called to speak, she hesitated. I could see the fear in her eyes. Not fear of the man across the room. Fear of choosing. She stood slowly. I spent most of my life believing I was abandoned, she said. That something was wrong with me. The biological father shifted in his seat. She continued. But I wasn't abandoned, she said, her voice trembling. I was protected. That was the moment I knew. She looked at me. You were there for every part of my life, she said. You didn't have to be. You chose to be. Then she turned toward the judge. This man didn't lose a daughter, she said firmly. He walked away from responsibility and came back when there was something to gain. Silence filled the room. The judge asked her one final question. Who do you consider your father? She didn't hesitate. The man who raised me, she said. The man who stayed. The ruling was swift. The claim was denied. No entitlement. No inheritance. No recognition. Just consequences. The biological father left without looking back. Not at me. Not at her. He had come for money. And left with nothing. Outside the courthouse, my daughter broke down. Not from relief. From release. I'm sorry, she said through tears. I was so focused on what I thought I was missing. I didn't see what I already had. I held her the way I used to when she was little. Not as a winner. As a father. Weeks later, we sat at the same kitchen table where this all began. No papers between us. Just coffee. She asked about the will. I told her the truth. I had divided my estate not by blood, but by presence. Not by entitlement, but by gratitude. I explained that love doesn't demand rewards. It earns trust. She nodded. I don't want anything I didn't earn by being here, she said. That sentence meant more to me than any apology ever could. I updated the will again. Not because of guilt, but because of growth. At 65, I learned something powerful. Family isn't proven by documents. It's proven by who stays when leaving would be easier. Blood may start a story, but love decides how it ends. If you're listening to this and you've ever felt overlooked, used, or questioned by the people you sacrificed for, remember this. You don't owe anyone proof of your love. Those who matter already know. And those who don't, never deserved it.